Penelope, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, here we are, half a century of Take Charge episodes as Penelope Jones, the founder and CEO of Byterat, takes charge for our 50th. I'm recording this intro back in Barcelona, but the episode itself was recorded in our Manchester headquarters, so apologies for this slight audio issue. It's not quite as crisp as it usually is. I'd like to give Paul Sinclair a special shout out. Paul is the CCO of Byterat and the EVP of Development at the Volta Foundation, and he's been a true supporter of the Take Charge movement since day one. He actually connected us with Penelope to talk all things battery data, analytics, and artificial intelligence in this episode. We hope you enjoy. This is actually the 50th episode of Take Charge. I realized just before today's recording, so thank you, Penelope, for joining us to the 50th episode. Obviously a bit of a landmark. So we'll start with your story, and then we'll go into some myths and facts. We've got a few questions from the community for you as well. But yes, to begin with, kind of talk us through your story and how and why you founded Byterat, and bring us to the present day.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Jamie, on the 50th episode. That's awesome, and it's a pleasure to be here. So I started working in battery labs in the physics department at the University of Cambridge. I was doing my PhD there, working on these models to predict how batteries could perform under different use cases. And through some of the publications that we put out, we actually got approached by a number of companies across the battery value chain. So we would work with these companies to build models to basically forecast how their assets would perform or how their experiments would wrap up. And we were working with companies ranging from next generation materials startups in Asia through to top 10 automotive manufacturers in Europe. And it was a really fascinating side hustle actually during my PhD, because what I learned from this experience is that all of these companies are struggling with their data and getting meaningful insights from that data. All of these companies had a problem managing the data and then making good, solid, reliable business decisions based on this data that was being generated. So the hypothesis that I had was that if I could create a valuable solution, data solution for this industry, we could help these companies to grow a lot faster and ultimately play our part in building this very strong, innovative, stable battery ecosystem in the West. And so what that ultimately led to is becoming a Y Combinator company. We raised $4 million. We relocated our headquarters out to San Francisco, which is where you can see we are right now. We're now actually on Battery Street in San Francisco. And it's been a really exciting journey. We now have customers across 3 continents. I think what's really interesting for me is that this hypothesis around the importance of data in helping battery teams to succeed turned out to be absolutely spot on. A very, very large scale battery manufacturer, one of the largest in the world, was just telling us this week that their words were, every battery company is a data company. And they have to get better at data in order to win. We're relearning this lesson every day. And it's exactly why we started the company in the first place.
I was going to ask what your mission is, but you pretty much summed it up nicely. And I guess, saw not just an opportunity, but saw a problem there that needed to be solved. And that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, my mission is that I really want to make a contribution to building a strong, self-sufficient battery ecosystem in the West. Like, anybody that knows me will tell you how much I love nature, being in nature. It's such a privilege to be in the world that we are in. I want to live in a world where energy is clean, abundant, and the beautiful thing is I think we're in reach of that as a society. And I think that batteries, electric vehicles, grid storage, they can play a very important role in realizing that future. And that's kind of why I went into battery research in my PhD in the first place. I think in terms of our mission as a data and AI company now, this was really something that I stumbled into during my PhD, actually. Yeah, I think this hypothesis around the pain that battery scientists and engineers experience with regards to data analytics, that was a hypothesis that I had during my PhD, and it just turned out to be true. It's probably even more true today than before. So yeah, really our mission just became to get these instant battery analytics and insights in reach of everyone to eliminate that friction that's associated with this data and help scientists get into this flow state so they can be more creative in their work and innovate faster.
And I completely agree with your statement around this. Yeah, this is very much within our reach. Clean energy, sustainable energy. I think there's so much in the human race's reach that we could achieve in a very short time span. But ultimately, there's a lot of issues or factors that stand in our way, which is just frustrating. But no, it sounds exciting. You mentioned data and AI. We've had a couple of guests on the show previously who've focused on battery data. So yeah, Penelope, tell us what kind of makes you different. How have you established the business to be a little bit different to the rest?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's probably not enough time in the show to get too much in the technical weeds here, but customers are telling us that what they're seeing us do with AI and with LLMs has not been seen in the market before. We're really riding this AI wave very hard, unleashing the power of AI for battery scientists. We have a very, very unique implementation of AI that we're very happy to show to anyone. In a nutshell, it is essentially like giving every battery scientist in your organization a world-class data engineer at their side to super fuel whatever they want to achieve with their battery data. So just imagine adding jet fuel to whatever efforts you're currently doing with your battery data. That's kind of the solution that we're providing. And that's on the technical side. I also have another theory from a more of a culture perspective relative to other companies in the market, but it's largely based on what customers are telling us. I think our difference is that our sole focus as a company is to empower the battery team. So when you're our customer, we're really on your team every step of the journey. A lot of these companies are stepping into the unknown when it comes to kind of realizing the potential of the product that they're putting out into the market. And as a company, we really see ourselves as a bolt-on team to your team to help you get your product out into the market in the highest quality way. As a business, we want to deliver the highest quality product, the best user experience, and the customers that we work with tell us that we have a very friendly approach. And but I mean, you'd have to speak to us to make that assessment for yourself.
And I guess it's still you've achieved a lot in such a short space of time, but I'd say, and I don't know if you would say this, you might disagree, you're still fairly early on in your journey. So let's say, for example, you were going to paint a perfect picture of how Byterat will look in 5 years' time. What would we all see?
Okay, I will slightly deflect this question because any time I have ever tried to paint a perfect picture of how things should be in the future, my perfect picture always turned out to be sort of superseded by nature's plans, which were always way more powerful, way more interesting, way more beautiful than the picture I had originally painted. So what I will tell you is that I've only ever underestimated how much we can accomplish, how much things can evolve in 5 years. I mean, 5 years ago, if you had described to me what generative AI could do for science, for battery science, it would have actually seemed to me to be a fantasy. But that's where we are today. So what I can say is that as a company, we will continue to be on the front foot when it comes to leveraging AI, when it comes to embracing the change that we're seeing from a technology perspective. I expect quite a lot to be different after 5 years, in 5 years' time, from a technology evolution perspective. And it's fun. It's exciting.
And more of a kind of, I'd say a personal question, but less technically related before we get onto the myths and facts section is, you've progressed quickly, Penelope. So talk us through the biggest lesson that you've learned so far in your career today. And is there anything that you do differently?
The lesson that I keep relearning over and over again is that you have to give people value. People don't need to be sold on something. They don't need to be convinced of something. They're not interested in you trying to control their perspective on the world. What they need is value. They need you to give them value. And I think that's just a lesson I keep relearning. And it's something we're very focused on now, just delivering as much value as we can, delivering the experience that our customers want. And we're getting a lot better at doing that. And yeah, if I could do anything differently, it would just be to have fully absorbed that lesson from birth. I think that's how you get the biggest impact.
I guess, as well as kind of learning where you can add the value, I guess it's even identifying with certain prospects. Maybe there's areas where you can't add value.
Exactly.
Just coming to that conclusion sooner rather than kind of forcing things through.
Totally. I think that's kind of the art of this whole thing. I mean, why would you want to create a product if you're not actually solving a problem for somebody out there?
Well, let's go for some myths and facts, Penelope. So we've got 5 here to cover, and we've got the perfect person to help us kind of bust these myths and facts. So we're obviously going to focus on data and analytics, a bit of AI as well. So the first one is this a myth or a fact? AI can predict battery life perfectly.
I think it's mostly a myth. I think it's mostly a myth, but I think it's partially true. What I will tell you is that all predictive models have the ability to which they can make a prediction depends partly on the data that they've seen in the past, right? And any company that claims to be able to sell you a model that can predict with 100% accuracy the way that any battery will perform under any condition in the future and exactly when it will die, it's almost a crystal ball. And unfortunately, there are companies that exist that to do this. I think there is a way that you can predict to a certain degree of accuracy, but perfectly, no.
Too many, as I said, too many variables. No one knows where that battery's gonna go. What's gonna happen to that battery's life. So, yeah, pretty possible. Nice. Second one, and just disclaimer: these questions were not AI generated. Ironic. AI can discover the perfect new material for your battery. Myth or fact?
I think that AI can be a tool for discovering new materials, but alone, it is not sufficient. I think that the way that most AI for materials companies work today in the battery industry is that they will run very, very advanced, impressive simulations to try to predict certain properties of that material, which are seen as a proxy for certain battery performance criteria. For example, maybe you are predicting the maximum voltage of the material that can be applied before it will decompose. This is great, but the challenge is that when you then put that material into a system as complex as a battery, you don't know what the implications of that material will be on the system as a whole. So AI can, I think, be a valuable tool for screening, but you always have to understand how will that material then perform when you try and integrate it into this very complex system as a whole. And that's something that I don't necessarily, I haven't seen evidence yet that AI for materials discovery in its existing form can do that. I think that's why you still need real world experimentation to close that loop. So partially partially true, partially a myth.
Third question, one that can help or concern battery engineers. This one is, with artificial intelligence, you don't need to run real battery tests anymore.
I think that it comes back to the last point, which is that batteries are still too complex of a system for us to be able to fully simulate every potential degradation mode through some kind of model. I still think there's going to be a need for validation tests. I do think that AI can serve a role here to reduce the number of tests, but I don't think that anytime soon we'll be removing testing labs.
Last two myths to clear up. Analytics are only for large-scale manufacturers.
That's a myth. Battery data analytics starts basically at the start of any journey through the battery value chain, whether that's you're a mining company looking to put your materials into a battery, whether you're looking to bring a new wearables product into the market that requires you to put a battery into that product. Any journey that involves getting a battery or a battery design out into the market, you're doing data analytics from day one, from R&D all the way through to pilot scale, all the way into industry. This is a thread that goes from the lab scale all the way through to manufacturing, through to end of life. And it obviously plays a big role at the manufacturing stage. I will say that for manufacturers, the time to taking action once the data has been generated is directly tied to the bottom line from a revenue standpoint. If you have any kind of defects, the sooner you can get to the root cause, the better. So the value proposition is very easy to quantify for a manufacturer, but there's still a huge amount of value and need for data analytics at every stage.
On that note, are you seeing any trends related to, we talked about large-scale manufacturers there. Are we seeing any trends when it comes to appetite for analytics and AI data when it comes to, say, early-stage research and development companies versus more established, larger scale? Are you seeing more of an appetite from either group, or is it fairly similar?
The nature of the need may be slightly different. The focus of the analysis may be slightly different because the business problems that these companies are trying to solve may be slightly different, as you would expect when you're in an R&D phase versus a scaling manufacturing stage. The revenue numbers may be slightly, the impact from a revenue perspective may slightly differ at the stages as well. Just going back to what we talked about at the start, I mean, what we're hearing from every customer that we speak to is that they see themselves as a data company. So data analytics is relevant for all of these businesses, no matter what stage they are at in their commercialization journey.
And the final question for this section is, battery data is only relevant for battery engineers.
That's a myth. What we see in companies is that every area of the business touches battery data somehow, whether it's indirectly through the analyses that the battery engineer is doing themselves, or whether they are able to look at that data themselves. For example, if you are working on the business side in these companies, like if you are going out and trying to sell your new material or your new product into the market, you have to be able to communicate the performance metrics and the analyses of the data that's coming out of your lab. You have to be able to navigate the battery data side of things as well. So I think that's why we're so excited about the new product that we have launched, because it is making battery data this centerpiece of your organization and giving every person in the organization, regardless of your background, regardless of whether you have a PhD in battery science, it's getting you closer to your battery data than ever before and helping you make those decisions faster than ever.
Section beautifully navigated, Penelope. Thank you very much. That was very, very informative. Yeah, thank you very much. So we're now on to the last section, which is questions from the community. And so you're obviously very popular, which we've got a lot of questions come through actually, but we've narrowed this down to the best three. So the first one is, what has been the most difficult decision you've had to make so far since establishing Byterat?
The biggest challenge that we've had as a company is we have this very big vision of the end point that we see. We saw this huge gap in the market and this potential for a company that could really transform the industry and fill this void. When you start a company, you're tiny and you can't solve everything at once. The challenge has always been getting the order of events right. Sort of knowing, okay, we know we know the mountain we want to climb. We know what the peak looks like, but how are we going to traverse this in a step-by-step way so that we can deliver value as soon as possible in a way that gets us to our goal as fast as possible? And then the second aspect of decision-making that can be challenging is also knowing when to let go of sort of historical ideas that you had and kind of staying laser focused on moving forward, continually innovating and embracing the change that I was talking about before.
Question number 2, which I think is quite an interesting one. This person has asked, do you think there is still room for something truly disruptive and game-changing in the industry when it comes to data and analytics in battery technologies?
Yes, definitely. Please come and talk to us, because we have just launched a product that we think is it's kind of game-changing. I came from the battery science world. I was a battery scientist myself before starting this, and all I can say is that I wish that I had this product when I was doing research, because I think I would have been moving at least 10 times as fast. So yes, is the short answer.
It's a really interesting question, because there's within many industries, it's kind of innovations on top of current innovations, maybe a change of material, size, there's so many different variations. But yeah, I think in this space, especially when it comes to data analytics and AI, I think we're very, very early on. So yeah, hopefully still there's plenty of room. The last question from the community, more of a personal one. This person has asked, who is also a female CEO in the battery industry. She has asked, do you feel truly respected as a female CEO in the battery industry? And I think this person is coming from an angle where they've actually worked in other industries before moving into battery. So they have a perspective of different industries also.
Thank you for the question. I do feel respected in this industry. And I understand that potentially a privilege for me to be able to say that. But my personal experience has been that, and this is true sort of throughout my whole career. I came from working in physics, which is also not an especially female-dominated space, but I've always just made decisions and business decisions as a person, and for the most part, I feel that I'm taken very seriously in the industry. I think mostly people see what I have to say as relatively credible, if what I'm saying is credible, and I feel, I guess I feel lucky that's been my experience.
I think as a humanity, we progress, but I still think personally we have a lot of work to do across many industries. I mean, from what obviously I'm a white male. I'm in a very privileged position. Male privilege is a real thing that a lot of men don't actually realize is a thing. But actually educating everybody on, how things work and how the world works and how you speak to certain individuals, you should speak to everybody in the same way, etc. I think it's a long way we can go. But from what I've seen in battery technologies, since working in other industries, I've seen positive kind of trends. There's like a really good environment. There's a lot of good people in this industry, a lot of well-educated people who treat each other with respect. So no, that's good to hear that your experience has been positive. Hopefully it only continues to improve and get better. And also it shouldn't even be a thing, it shouldn't be a thing we talk about, which demonstrates that there is, someone shouldn't be asking that question in the first place. So we have room to improve. And the final question, Penelope, from a former guest of the show. And obviously you don't know who this is. I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's quite a tough question, actually. So this is also another reason I'm not going to tell you who it is. But they have asked, and they as well, they don't know they're asking this question to you either, so it's not personal. So this person has asked, given the recent administration change, the turmoil in the industry, the lack of funding in the industry, are you still excited to be leading a company in this space, or are you more concerned to be leading a company in this space?
I've never been more excited to work on the business that I'm working on. I've never been more ambitious, more bullish, more obsessive over the product and the experience that we're creating for our customers. And that's not coming from living in a bubble. That's coming from what I'm hearing from every company that we're talking to. I mean, we're talking to some of the biggest manufacturers in the world, both on the battery manufacturing side and on the hardware product side, consumer electronics companies, electric vehicle companies, grid storage companies. And this industry is not going away. Yes, there are oscillations. This is life. This is nature. But let's go back to the original premise on which I started the company. I believe in a future where energy is clean, energy is abundant, technology is helping to support and living in harmony with nature. And I also believe in Western values. It's hard for me to believe that the West will not eventually get to a place where we have a stable supply chain when it comes to batteries. So we're going through some challenges, but what we're seeing from our customer interactions is batteries are not going away. The future still has batteries playing a very big part. And with the amount of innovation that is happening right now in the world, I just feel more excited than ever about this opportunity.
What a great answer. That's what we'd love to hear, Penelope, that kind of energy and passion. Because, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, negative news always gets the headlines. That's just how loads of, so, it's really, really refreshing to hear you say those words, and, you're totally enthused and passionate, and customers are also positive. I totally agree. The industry isn't going away. It's got so much momentum. Sure, there's a bit of a bump in the road, but the trajectory of this industry is only going one way. So yeah, I think just it's a great message for everybody out there. This is life. These things happen, but that you're in the right space that's working towards good, and we need it ultimately. So, we're not working on something that's a luxury.
I so agree with that. And the thing is that with sort of a big picture perspective, these things that happen in the short term start to feel just like little obstacles that you have to overcome rather than the ending, because you know that the ending is way more vast and impressive than this hurdle that we need to overcome now. So that's what keeps us going any day that we have some kind of hurdle to overcome.
Absolutely. Well, Penelope, thank you for a great episode, and obviously the 50th one as well. So a real pleasure, and a great way to, I think a great question to end on. This podcast has come on a journey over the past 18 months, and the industry has changed a lot in the last 18 months. So, it's great to hear that. So yeah, thank you again for coming on, and yeah, good luck with your plans and with the business, and hopefully when we do episode 2 together in however long that is, we're talking about some amazing things that are developed in the industry and in your business and in AI. So yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and congrats on 50 episodes. That's awesome. I love your podcast.
Here's the next 50.
It's the next 50.